All right. Welcome to first Wednesday of 2021. Hope everybody had a happy new year. My name's Zach. I'm the Durham Co-op's beer and wine coordinator. With me tonight, we've got Jeremy from Three Keys, one of my distributors based out of Charlotte, I believe. And
Yes, sir.
he worked about the Giuliano Rosati family wines. We've got their Pinot Grigio tonight, as well as Tuscan red blend, which is kind of a little sleeper on the shelves. I think it really over delivers, and I've always liked just how crisp this Pinot Grigio is. But Jeremy, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, talk about what got you into wine and how long you've been doing this, and anything else you want to mention. And as you start talking, I'll share some of the pictures that you've shown, that you shared with me earlier this week, and we can talk about these awesome wines.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Zach. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it feels good to be at my very first Wines Day. Yeah, I'm excited. So I've been in the business for just over 19 years. I started in retail. I was at Cost Plus World Market in Winston-Salem, and it sort of came from furniture, which is a weird segue, I know, but I was in charge of the wine department and the furniture department, and sort of fell in. Obviously, wine is better to hang out with than furniture, and so made the switch over to the buyer, and then did that for about a year and a half, and then I was ready to hit the streets and put the word out. And luckily, there was a company, Sante Wine Distributors, that was hiring in my area, which was Winston-Salem and Greensboro at the time. And yeah, and so I've been with a wine company since then, and left a couple of years to go do some wine bar stuff in Charlotte. I worked for a wine bar out on the coast. I also was an importer for some Australian wines for a couple of years. So I've pretty much done all the things in the wine world except make and own, which is probably two things I'm not necessarily interested in doing just yet. But yeah, I'm sorry.
I would like to automate, but I don't know if I would want to full time, do that as my livelihood. That would be a little intense, I think, from just all of the people I've met over the years.
Yeah, I think it takes a special person to definitely, that's their livelihood. And although I love those people, and love hanging out with them, I don't know that the day-to-day of, harvest at night and the grueling work of that, and then into the winery, and then all the time, that's it. Yeah, it's hard work, and I appreciate what they do. I love drinking it.
Right. Yeah. I think everybody who's joining tonight is in that same boat, which is why they're here.
That's right.
We try, get all sorts of cool stuff at the co-op. Tonight, if you want to, I'll share a screen of the property. It's really gorgeous in Tuscany, and so you can kind of see here.
So while you're sharing, I'll talk a little about Three Keys, if that's okay. Yeah. Three Keys is a fairly new company in the distribution side of it, although all the key players have been doing this a long time, like myself. We're just 3 years old. We are based out of Charlotte, but we sell statewide, and probably this year we'll venture into South Carolina for sales also. We've got a lot of really great small artisanal producers, family-owned wineries. We have a few brands. We've kind of got all the things that make for a good distribution company. We just sell wine. We don't sell beer. So I came into the market and met Zach. Gosh, I guess it's just a year ago when I first met you, and started working with you guys. And I happen to live right around the corner too. So I'm not only a salesman, but I'm also a client.
That's the best for me.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a beautiful picture. So to talk a little bit about Giuliano Rosati and if there's questions, guys, or Zach, I'm missing something, or we need to go back, just, redirect me any way that you need. The Giuliano Rosati is owned by two guys, Charlie Trevinia and Dan Bada, and they actually own Regal Wine Imports. Both of them are from, their families are Italian and are from the Marquis. And so this is a brand that they use in partnership with some of these wineries that they import. And we see that a lot with importers. They'll partner with a winery and say, hey, I'd love to have my name on a wine. Can you help me with that? And so these guys that they work with help them. What's different in this situation is that these wines are estate wines. You know, you look at the Pinot Grigio and it says estate bottled right on the label. That's pretty unusual for a Pinot Grigio in this price point. And that's a testament to their family owned, you know, to the relationships they have with these families. And what you're seeing there is the winery that they have partnered with, and it's called Zelina Winery, and it's up in Friuli. So we'll go, I think there's some maps too. One of the things that you notice about this vineyard is exactly how flat it is. So Friuli is, if you're looking at this picture, is in the top. Did I just see your mouse move? Oh, and we have a laser pointer. There it is. I love it. So that's where Friuli is. And so off the Mediterranean, it's pretty flat. And then it goes up into, and there's another great picture, of where you see the mountains start to, in the western part of Friuli, you start to see the two mountain ranges, or the Apennines and the Alps. So that vineyard you're seeing is very flat. And what you're getting there is warm heat. So in this picture, you see that maroon is really, that's sort of the flatter part, and it goes up into the Alps. So you get coastal influence, you're getting warmer influence, and you're also getting just bigger, riper fruit. And this is a great example of Pinot Grigio from Friuli. They tend to be rounder than, say, their cousins up in Alto Adige, which tend to be real clean and crisp and tons of acid. Really pretty Pinot Grigios. This is exactly what we expect. It's a little creaminess, it's a little round, it sits on the palate so beautifully. Smells great too.
Hey, Rosemary. Yeah, that's like the difference that Friuli gives to Pinot Grigios. It's very, like, when you think of Italy, you do think of those like two styles, and that the ripeness that this offers, the fullness. It's not thin or watery. It actually has some body. I think for an unoaked Chardonnay person, this would also kind of hit some of the same chords as far as the weight that the wine offers, and the fact that all coming from an estate versus kind of negociant like they do in France, or like where they're buying a bunch of grapes from different parcels or different co-ops. That's a really cool little tidbit. And also, I love this map that you gave me the other day, because it shows the mountain ranges and shows like how influential. We've talked on several other calls about like rain shadows, or the fact that like how the ocean breezes kind of swoop in with different the wind, the way the winds like kind of catch into like mountain ranges and then offer ripeness or offer no rain, or how geography really plays into effect with how the produce is really coming to be. That's the whole point. Grapes are agricultural products, and that's something we talk about every time, because that's what makes a vintage different. That's what makes different grapes in different parts of the world special and unique and delicious. You mentioned Marche as well. That's this guy right here. So further south, right above Abruzzo, which is known for Montepulciano, which Rosati also has. It's another wine that the co-op carries, is the Montepulciano di Abruzzo. So right where these two guys are from. And right now we're drinking the wine all the way from basically northeast Italy before you get into Venice, so Veneto. So if you've ever been to Venice, then you're a couple of miles away from where this wine came from.
So Zach, question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You used the word negociant, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So is that in France, where you have one or two wineries working together, or I don't know what the meaning of that word is?
So the way that I understand it is that a negociant is basically a household or winery, if you will, that then buys grapes from producers in their area or the region that they would like to produce wine from. They're buying grapes, instead of one person making wine, they're buying grapes for tons of people. Really, really big wineries do this. It's very huge in Champagne, France. It's very big in Burgundy. I mean, I want to say that Veuve Clicquot is a negociant as far as like the production that to reach their levels. They're buying grapes from farmers that, you know, they've had relationships with for probably hundreds of years. But the whole idea of negociant is kind of like a co-op, but it's one person buying the grape versus like a whole bunch of farmers going into one place. It's one person buying from a whole bunch of people. Jeremy, you might be able to speak to this as well.
Yeah, yes, and negociants also are creating brands. It might not be tied into a winery. Bordeaux is pretty famous for this as well. You know, Zach and I might go into business and we'll buy a bunch of fruit, and we're just sort of negotiating and you know, coming up with contracts. In Champagne, you know, houses do that. The bigger houses are doing that because they can't meet their production. You know, they sell, gosh, I mean, I think I don't have an exact number, but from Veuve versus a grower champagne like Pierre Moncuy or Lancelot-Pien, from, you know, 10,000 cases to 1 million cases is pretty tremendous. And so they're having to buy fruit that way. What you're seeing, this is along those lines with, so they are buying fruit and creating a brand. They happen to be buying it from the winery Zalina, and then down in Chianti or Tuscany from Lornano. And so they are negociants. There are different words, and there are different versions of negociant. There are negociants that have property and buy things. There are negociants that sort of just buy and create. And all of those words will show up on the labels. You'll see sometimes mise en bouteille, negociant, so-and-so, and that's just made and bottled by. And so there are different versions of that. Okay. And co-ops usually go in, like co-ops for wine usually go in with, gosh, I had one out yesterday, and there was 300 winemakers in the co-op, right? With something like 1,200 hectares, you know, which is almost 4,000 acres. And so between all those guys, they produce wine under one label.
Thank you. That's helpful.
But back to this one, Jeremy, you said this is estate bottled.
Correct.
And so if I missed something, would that be the grapes were grown on that estate and bottled on that estate?
That's correct. So it's funny to talk about estate bottled and estate wines. There is no true definition of estate that's regulated on labels. So if Zach and I in that same wine we're going to make, you know, have you know, Durham Cab, it's estate. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, and there's no regulation. We can use that as a marketing tool. However, estate bottled does have weight. That means, according to the U.S. TTB, maybe TTB, and according to the U.S. wine governing body, if it says estate bottled, it's made on, and the fruit is from that estate and made on that estate.
Okay. Yeah,
it's kind of like farmstead cheese. If you see farmstead on a label for cheeses, it means that the animals were raised on that farm, the milk was produced on that farm, and the cheese was made on that farm. Same kind of idea, where instead of buying, you know, like when we had boxcar handmade cheese, they buy their cow's milk and they make their goat's milk. So their goat's milk is a farmstead cheese if it's 100% goat's milk. If they blend that cow's milk in, they can't necessarily call it farmstead anymore because it's not their own produced milk. It's the same kind of idea with the grapes, where if you're growing the grapes, making the wine, putting it in the bottle, it's the same idea. And it's kind of giving it the legitimacy that you know exactly where this fruit comes from, is saying like, okay, I know that this, since it says estate bottled on it, like I know it's coming from one parcel of land instead of like what Jeremy just mentioned, the 300 plus wine growers that are then, you know, over 4,000 acres. I mean, that's the size of a county in you know, North Carolina. So you're shoving all of that into one one bottle, and it's not kind of loses some of the typicity or some of like that point of origin kind of feeling to it, which is what makes this I think really great. And again, for $9.99 on the shelf, sometimes even cheaper, like it's a lot of wine, kind of bang for buck. I really love showing off some of our value wines because I try to find things that everybody could drink, and it doesn't matter if you want to spend, $10 or $200. We're gonna get you something that is really, I think, a great example of it. Which I think we started off with the Rosso Toscano, which is, again, just kind of a sleeper that kind of sits on the shelf, and it's got a funny bottle, and it's really, really tasty. Before we move on, though, there's another couple pictures. I believe this is the Tuscany vineyards, where the first picture we showed was up in Friuli, and the fact that the Jeremy, you were mentioning that it was very flat up there. Don't know if I can.
Florence.
The flatness helps with basically controls how the water drains, and how there's fact that there's no slopes will give you the way the sun hits the vineyards and that kind of stuff. So if you want to talk about that for a second, I think that'd be really neat.
Yeah. So, the thing about soil and runoff, and, grapes love water, but they don't love too much water. One of the things, and we'll just talk about our own state here for a reason. I'm from North Carolina, born and raised, so I can, talk about their wines, I think, authentically and not upset. But North Carolina wines struggle, and we're seeing over the last 10 years or 5 years, we're seeing real flavor come out. But the problem with North Carolina is soil holds the water, and then the moisture in the air from the humidity also holds the water, and the grapes don't know what to do with that much water. When you see something like Friuli, and it is sort of a coastal climate, you're right there on the Mediterranean. So the soil there is kind of gravelly loam. I'm not saying I'm saying that right. Loam, there it is. Gravelly loam. And so that soil drains very well. So it doesn't hold the water in there. And some of these roots go, 6 to 12 feet deep. So the soil drains very well, and it's not terribly humid either, because the breeze is kind of coming in and like whipping the moisture in the air around. And so what you're getting there, as opposed to say Tuscany with a little bit of rolling hills and more drainage, is you're getting a little bit warmer, riper fruit. And the way the sun hits the Mediterranean, so it comes in from the Aegean and sort of works its way over into the Alps. It gets a full day of sun exposure. And so the grapes have a really great, have a lot of time to ripen and get all the sun and and they're able to soak up the moisture appropriately. And there's not a whole lot of leftover water during the evening that these grapes might bring in a little bit of mildew and moisture.
That's really a good explanation. That's so helpful.
I think, speaking of North Carolina wines too, there's a handful that I think do a really great job. One is from Sanctuary Vineyards out on the coast. It's in Arneus. You were right in Wilmington for several years, so I'm sure you're they're right outside of Kitty Hawk or something on the
they're in the Outer Banks.
So the grapes that grow in this really sandy soil, which I think also alludes to that really high drainage versus where we are. If you don't have red clay in your backyard, I don't know if you're actually in Durham County, because we speak with that all the time. And clay, just like we were speaking in the Bordeaux videos, is really great for soaking up moisture and kind of holding on to it. Where grapes, can tend to get a little flabby. They get they swell up because that's what they do. They're trying to make the biggest grape that they can. But we want things that have concentrated flavors. Jeremy speaking about the fact you want your grapes to what they call struggle. So you don't want them to have too much water, because then it's kind of too easy and then they make too much fruit. You don't want, you want them to be ripe to develop sugars, but you still need to preserve that acidity to give the wines balance. Which the winemaker has a lot to do with as well, as far as when they're harvesting. You mentioned at night, that's a very common practice. just so the grapes aren't hot, so that they don't kind of almost like cook and start to continue to produce sugars. So it's really great. Before we move on, I'll show you the tech sheet. Something that as a wine buyer, a lot of my reps will show what's, what is called a tech sheet. So it's basically a breakdown of the winery and who the winemakers are, where it's appellated, if it is appellated, which kind of gives you that sense of place, guaranteeing that it's from a certain part of Italy or Spain or whatnot. The soil breakdown, which can be really helpful because you can kind of get an idea based on the geography of a place, and then how you're kind of what you should expect based on it's a really high loam content. Granted, I'm not quite there yet. I would love to be able to discern what's in a bottle of wine just from the soil types, but it's just really, I think, a great source of information. The fact that it's stainless steel aged, so you shouldn't expect any of those kind of buttery or smoky or vanilla flavors without even tasting it. A tech sheet can give you a whole lot of information. And yeah, it's a nice little thing that kind of, we get to see, especially joining Wines Day, we're able to share these kind of cool little, mini facts, if you will.
So Zach, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
If we wanted to have that tech sheet for a particular bottle of wine that we have, just go into Google or whatever and look it up, because that looks like that's really helpful.
Yes and no. So some producers will put their tech sheets online. Some of them are what's considered an industry. I don't know if there's any regulation on sharing it. Honestly, I'm more than happy to send them out to you. A lot of websites will put their tech. You'll have to kind of dig for it a little bit on certain producers, where if you just say Giuliano Rosati and then see what pops up versus kind of there's some other, like Bogle is a good example where they don't put their tech sheet online for the Phantom that we shared back in October. So that's the kind of thing where reach out to me. I'm more than happy to send it your way, and that way you can have it. Jeremy, I don't know if you know of another easy resource for tech sheets.
Yeah, if you could send this one to us, that'd be great.
Yeah. I think so. Regal as a company has a lot of great resources on their website, and all the things are on there for Giuliano Rosati. Some wineries like to share that information, some do not, and that's just up to the winery. And so, we try. Usually, there is information on the website. When you have something like Bogle that won't share that sort of thing, you have to, we Google search it just like you will. And before I go out and, say I'm going to taste with Zach on a new wine, I probably look at 5 websites if I can't find it, a site in the UK, a site in France, to kind of piece together all the information. And you almost are doing like a little detective work to figure out what's in these darn wines sometimes. And sometimes we just go and say, all I know is it's from California and it's red. So let's taste it and see what we can figure out.
Why would they not want to put that information out? It's so enlightening.
I tend to also feel that way. Like in the age of the digital, everybody wants to know what's in things. And a lot of wineries are still behind the 8 ball. They don't understand the importance of if I could look at the tech sheet while I'm shopping in the co-op and I see that this wine has all of the things that I love about it, I'll just take it. And Zach doesn't have to be there to hand sell all of the wines. Yeah, I think it's a really great thing, and all wineries should do it. I used to work for an Australian woman, and when she would put the water on the boat to send it over to the US, that tech sheet was online ready to go. So we were ready and could talk about it, and anybody could ask us a question. What's the residual sugar? What's the elevation? What's the soil type? And we could speak to it, before the wine landed. So I think it's important.
Yeah, I agree. Some people might be overwhelmed by the amount of information that some of the tech sheets can offer. Granted, that's, kind of as you're learning wine and what you are kind of looking for. I have I think I have probably a stack of like 300 tech sheets that have been handed to me over the last, almost 3 years that I've been at the co-op. And it's, sometimes I can reference them. Sometimes they're not as organized as they probably should be for me to reference them. But the internet's a great resource. And it can really kind of help, if you know, some, like what we were talking about, some companies not wanting to share that information. Some of it they feel is still proprietary, which, okay, like, again, you'd have to know the exact yeast, you'd have to know the exact like kind of recipe, if you will, that the winemakers come up with if you're trying to protect that, proprietary blend. I don't think at this point, we've got wines that are literally called replica, where they have thrown wines into a spectrometer and like analyzed their flavor components and, seen like the markers of the different kind of, mini flavors, if you will, that are present in a wine. And then they are literally replicating those wines with winemaking science and, different yeasts and that kind of stuff. So there's all over the place as far as what kind of information is out there or what some wineries are aiming to do and what others are, we've got people who make natural wines that are, every vintage is totally different. The yeast is what magically appeared in the air. So there's a lot to it.
There's a new thing that's sort of it's not necessarily new in the wine world, but it's getting closer to happening in the States. And that's back label transparency. So there is a movement around the world to have, if you buy any food, it says what's on the back label to tell you what's in there. Peanuts may contain this, may contain this. And so the wine world, Paul Draper from Ridge started that in California, but he was the only one that told you what was going into those bottles of wine. And when he was the only one, people were like, why is there so-and-so in there? Why is this in there? And it made him look terrible. But we're going to see it soon. I would say within the next 3 years, we'll see wines where the back label will show you the ingredients. And that's when these wineries in California that are putting all kinds of weird purple and select yeast that have been modified from, some sort of lab and God knows where, you'll start to see that on there. And although I don't think it will deter most people, it will be an eye opener to see what's in our wine. And some winemakers just don't want to do that. They don't want to tell you what's in there for a number of reasons. It might change next year. And what's the point of having to reprint all these labels? And also, I don't want to tell the guy next to me because he will replicate that.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm starting to see facts on some wines. Ciders typically have nutrition facts now because they're classified differently than a beer is. Some of the beers are slowly coming out with nutrition facts or the fact that they have, whatever flavoring added to them. So it's definitely a shift because people want to really see what they're putting into their bodies. With all the different kind of lifestyle choices that people are choosing to consume food, same kind of thing. You're definitely seeing that, more openness with what you're putting into your food because there's information out there that you can find. And then a lot of people would be upset if they figured out that why is there, egg white in my wine?
Yeah.
I'm a vegan or whatever, people.
Right.
Remember Guinness several years ago was using isinglass in their fining agents. And when vegans found out that there was fish bladder in their beer, which there's, it's touchy subject for myself, but people still, they want to know, they want to be informed. They want to know that they're making the right decision for themselves. And I think that's a smart move, especially if you're not putting mega purple in your wines, you're not capitalizing or acidifying, you're really being, putting your best foot forward, if you will. where there's some wines that will never get away from that. And I feel like consumers should know that part of it, just for their own well-being, you know.
Although we just read an article that was rather simple, that red wine and cheese was good for cognitive functioning and
We think we need
in
that
old age.
cognitive functioning. We're kind of after that.
That's important.
I agree. You just take it a step further and just, you know, only eat red wine and cheese.
Yeah.
And
You're going to be thinking so well.
We're working at it.
We're depending on you, Zach.
Oh, good. Yeah, actually, Abby and I are going to be having cheese night later this evening, so we're going to be really smart tomorrow and ready to, you know, think a whole bunch about the weekend and the coming couple of weeks. You know, we'll see what happens. That's actually pretty great.
What time should we come over?
For sure.
What time should we come over?
Let's see. 6:45. It might take me a few
6:45.
minutes.
Got it, Ed?
Put everything together.
All right.
Yeah, just Zach, just drop a pin where you are, and I'll bring the samples from the day.
Good. And we'll come and we'll just be the connoisseurs.
Connoisseurs, I like it. I like it.
The shiners, right, Jeremy?
The diners.
What's that?
The shiners.
The shiners, that's right. Shiners.
Yeah, I remember.
Nice.
So Jeremy brought a bottle by a few weeks ago that didn't have a label on it yet because it's from the tank. So it's wine that's not quite ready to send to market, but it's done. It's just not quite what it'll develop in the bottle to. And they don't have a label. And he's like, they have a funny name and I can't remember. And then a couple hours later, I get a text message that just said Shiners. And I'm like, what?
Oh.
And so then it put the pieces together. But
yeah. At least it wasn't at 3 a.m. when you got the text. Shiner.
Exactly. Giuliano Rosati makes is the Rosso Toscano, so the red wine for the evening. This is in a funny little squat bottle. I'll go ahead and share that picture again of the beautiful rolling hills that we've got going on. You can kind of see there. We go. And this wine is from Tuscany. So Tuscany is the home of Chianti. That's, you know, kind of what people look for. They, you know, flip that bottle over, see that the black rooster on the back of your bottle, and you know you've got a Chianti. And I want to say it's mainly Sangiovese, but Jeremy, please tell us about this kind of, you know, like I said, a little secret gem on the bottom shelf.
So you know, for the longest time, when I would take out a Sangiovese, I would talk about it and people are like, I've never had it before. And then I would say, well, have you had Chianti? And they would say, oh gosh, yeah, I love it. I drink it all the time. Well, that's Sangiovese. And, you know, like we are struggling in our world to understand the difference in all the grapes. There's like 1,000 grapes in Italy that are just indigenous to Italy. But what, you know, Sangiovese is sort of their crown jewel. Arguably, of course, I think the Piemonte will tell you Nebbiolo, and Sicily will tell you, you know, yeah. But, you know, when we think of Italy, that's, you know, I would say 8 times out of 10, the first person says Chianti, Brunello, you know, Sangiovese. And then the Super Tuscan was this really beautiful thing that kind of came about because the Tuscan producers were tired of Sangiovese. And they wanted to add in these Bordeaux varietals. And so Merlot and Cab, and honestly, Cab Franc does so well in Tuscany. It's really quite magical. If you've ever had Sassicaia, it is predominantly Cab Franc. If you've ever had their little cousin, it's also predominantly Cab Franc, and it's, you know, 1/10 of the price of Sassicaia. But I digress. But so we've seen this movement of Bordeaux varietals come in, and within the last, within the last 15 years, we've seen a real movement of Super Tuscan, and people can talk about it as a category. And this is just a little baby Super Tuscan. It is, so the blend stays roughly, they shoot for 80-20. And so it is 80-20, and it's mostly Merlot. Let me tell you, make sure I'm telling you that right. Yeah, 80% Merlot and 20% Sangiovese. And one of the things that we've always thought is that Sangiovese kind of amplifies these Merlot, Cab, and Cab Franc varietals. It really kind of boosts them. And I tend to find it's the other way. This Merlot is boosting, it's 80% Merlot, but it's boosting this Sangiovese. So you get that real weight from the Merlot with that leather and spice and everything nice kind of wrapped around in this beautiful little package, especially in this little squat bottle. Like, it makes you want to pick it up and drink it out of the bottle. Don't record that part. Edit that out, edit. But yeah, it's just such a fun wine. Pizza, pasta, burgers, mushrooms. If you're not a burger person, eat some mushrooms with this. Like, this is just easy wine, and we love it. It is all, it's all tank, no oak during fermentation or in the aging, or no concrete, which is another thing we're starting to see a little bit of in Tuscany as well. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, you tasted on this wine, and I was like, okay, like, this has a home pretty immediately. I like to describe Super Tuscans as if Italians were making California wine. So they have that like kind of big, juicy body to them. They're approachable, but you still taste Italy. You still get that kind of bright, tart cherry thing that Sangiovese can offer, but then you get all that kind of like lusciousness that, like you were saying, like the Merlot offers, and that kind of like the heftiness of the body without just being astringent. There's tannins, but they're not overwhelming at all. And I think your pizza recommendation is spot on. Like, this and a slice of pizza would be pretty tasty. Wednesday night, if we weren't doing cheese, we'd probably be doing pizza. So this, I think, is really great. We talked earlier about the rolling hills versus Friuli, which is like the nice kind of flat plain. This is on the other side of Italy. So we can kind of see this beautiful picture here with all these like slow undulating hills. Helps with water drainage, helps with the fact that the sun actually has different like levels to kind of hit on, and will offer different kind of ripeness levels. And I'll show that other map too, which I thought is really great with the mountain hills on it. You can see this is where we're talking about right now. This kind of ochre color, that burnt orange right here on the left-hand side. And that is Tuscany, and home to Florence, which again, kind of the other major city. Florence, Venice, and Rome are what you think of, and probably Milan and Turin as well. But those three are kind of a lot of people's bucket list to see. And this is where you're talking about, right? Right in this area is Florence, and then this whole part is is Tuscany, which is where this wine is from.
If you look at that map, you can also see down the spine of right in the middle of the boot is the Apennines, which is another mountain range, and so it goes all the way down to the toe, all the way up to the top of the leg. And I think it's important to know that Italy is not terribly flat in too many places, like we saw in Friuli. It is these rolling hills that are going up into these mountain, the mountain slopes. And it's a really fun, interesting country. If you've ever been, I've only been on the internet, and it looks great. But if you've been, then these winding roads to get you from town to town are going up and down hills and hillsides, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, we were there in 2014. That's
Nice.
That looks neat. We've been there.
Oh, it's beautiful, according to the internet.
Yeah.
Where did you guys?
I was there I was in Florence in 2002, which is a long time ago now. It makes me feel, seasoned, if you will. And it was gorgeous. One of the best pictures I took, which who knows, because it was a real film camera, it's 20 years ago now. And you see the sun rays and the rivers and the bridges and all that kind of fun stuff. I remember walking up to the Piazza del David because I wanted to see David. I was in Florence, and we get there and it's a bronze replica covered with pigeons, and it's okay. This is definitely not right. And then I had to walk to the other side of Florence where the actual museum is and pay my 13 euro or whatever it was to actually see David. But we did trains when I was there in 2002. When I was there in 2011 or 12, we had a car, and the roads are crazy. You're talking like all the mountains, and then it's flat for a long time, which are going 100 or 120 kilometers per hour, and then it's back to 40, and you're doing windy, scary roads again. So Italy is a really cool country. A lot of diversity as far as geography, and you don't really think when you're drinking wine, you don't necessarily think of kind of transporting yourself to that place, but that's really what you're doing. Is it's kind of a $10 ticket to Italy that we're drinking right now, and you can really kind of get a sense of like where it's coming from and why. And I think doing these chats is really fun because we get to kind of talk about the why that's what's in the bottle. Here's the tech sheet for this particular wine. Jeremy, I don't know if do you know why the bottle is like this?
I did. So if I remember right, and don't hold me to this, this is definitely the style. This is definitely the types of bottles that we would see kind of early on, and they wanted to kind of give a nod to that style, that old bottle shape, and to have a little something different on the shelf. But that is so before, bottles were very, if we go back like early bottles were a certain shape in a certain region. And we think of Riesling, the flute shaped bottles, glass color was the signature there. So Alsace might be green and Mosel would be blue. And so that was really why those were different that way. And really all of wine was this shape for a while. And then we started to see the Bordeaux and the Burgundy shapes kind of come in later in the glassing situation, I think.
Yeah, no, I think when you think of it used to be an indicator where the wine came from was if you had a Burgundy bottle, so like a tall, like shoulderless bottle, so like a short flute, like you were saying.
Yeah, so
that's
a Burgundy bottle. Yeah.
And then lucky my wine rack is right next to me. And then that is a Bordeaux bottle. So you've got these like shoulders on there. This is kind of classic Californian as well. Now for non-Pinot Noir and for Pinot Noir, you typically see it, the varietals that came from Burgundy, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, you typically see in Burgundy bottle. Varietals that came from Bordeaux, so Merlot, Cabernet, Cabernet Franc, like you see in that kind of classic Bordeaux bottle. And that used to be an indicator of what's kind of going on in there. And then, things have changed. A lot of times people used to think of Chianti as a bottle wrapped in that, kind of rope. And that had
the wicker baskets, yeah.
Exactly. So it's, then I think that's also kind of fun.
The bottle wouldn't make any difference, would it, in terms of how it existed inside of it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe ageability.
What was that question? Say that again. I'm sorry.
Like the ageability difference in a Bordeaux bottle versus a Burgundy bottle. Like when something's on a rack, and then because there's a shoulder, your sediment is typical to gather right here. And so like that would help. But as far as like a Pinot bottle, I don't exactly like there's no place for the sediment to go, which typically that's only a really big deal if you're decanting, which most of the wine that we sell at the co-op doesn't necessarily need to be decanted right out of the bottle. I'm not selling super vintage stuff. As you can see, most of the bottles are vertically displayed, which, you know, is a longevity thing. You want to keep that cork wet if you can, and temperature controlled. But I don't know. I'll have to look into that one for you, Ed, and see if we can get what the bottle does.
Back, Jeremy, what was the blend again on this one, Merlot and
So it's Merlot and Sangiovese, yes, sir.
Yeah, what are
80% Merlot.
80% Merlot?
80-20, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yep. So to go back to reiterate what Zach said, the shape of the Bordeaux bottle is to catch sediment.
That's interesting.
And honestly, some of the best aged wines are Rieslings and Gruners, mostly Rieslings. And so the shape of those bottles, you know, old Riesling will throw tartaric acid at the end of it. But that's just a thing that comes with age. And I think it's more about the sediment in Bordeaux than the ageability of it. And that's sort of how the glass shape came about.
Yeah, the literal colors kind of fall out of the solution. So those anthocyanins that are trapped into over time, they just don't have anything to kind of hold on to them anymore. And they also kind of like coagulate together almost. And they'll literally just kind of drop in. If you've ever seen sediment, you know, kind of almost like sandy little red bits in your wine, it's good, usually a good sign of age. And you also notice some what's called rim variation. So if you hold your glass at an angle, you can kind of see different colors from like that kind of like meniscus, I guess, if you hold it like that. I don't know if you can see you'll see some color differential at the tip as it goes towards what they call the core of the wine. That's very like Wesset or Gilda Sommelier, like as they're kind of, you know, judging wines blindly. Those are markers that they use, which we've not done a grid wines day. Maybe that we get to do that.
That might be fun. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Kind of see, we'll have to find some affordable wine with some rim variation and some bricking in it, which may or may not be possible, but we'll see what we can do.
Smooth, easy drinking.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this
just is a very smooth, easy drinking wine.
Yeah, it's so easy. Every time I take it out and show it, I forget why it's just so good. It should be an everyday drinker. It's easy, it's smooth, it's beautiful. Yeah. Pizza, pasta, burgers. And cheese. And cheese at Zach's house.
Yeah.
He's at my house. I've actually got some Italian for dinner tonight, so this is. It was, you know, there was a thought of it, so.
Can I plug the big bottle?
Yeah, go ahead. So one thing that I'm able to special order for everybody is kind of the big daddy version of the Rosso Toscano. So Jeremy, please feel free. I believe it's the same blend, right?
It is the exact same blend. It is 80-20. The only difference is it's 18 months in barrel. This is a Magnum, so 2 bottles. It's a wax seal. It actually comes in its very own single gift pack. And Poggio Sante is, you know, Poggio is kind of hill. And so it means hill. And so, you know, it's a Saint Hill. So it's still exact same blend. And it's really pretty affordable from, you know, the little bottles are pretty affordable. This is pretty affordable as well.
Does it only come in mags?
It only comes in mags. They only made 200 6-packs. And we special ordered it for Christmas. But then my boss was smart enough to bring in a few extras. So I'm going to pick up probably a 6-pack. And a lot of people were giving them as gifts this year too. So pretty fun little wine.
I have one.
Do you have some of those in stock, Zach?
I've got one. It's got my name on it currently, but I'm sure Jeremy is more than happy to send me a couple more.
Absolutely. We can certainly do that. I can get that to you anytime.
Sounds like we'll take one.
All right. Perfect.
Awesome.
All right. So hopefully everybody's enjoyed the wines tonight. Are there any other questions before we wrap up the first Wines Day of 2021?
The session was very good for our recently vaccinated arms.
All right, good.
Nice.
Hopefully your first dose goes well. And how long before your second?
3 weeks.
21 days, yeah.
Okay.
And
Gotcha. Well,
I might comment that the showing the maps is extremely helpful. That
Good.
just gives us a little bit
Yeah,
more
yeah.
information, and that's very, very helpful.
It's
We
one of the.
were in Italy for 3 weeks in 2014 and went all the way up from Naples through Venice. And that's when Chianti's, I think their stock rose quite a bit that quarter or whatever. We had a good run up through there. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really was driven home to me when I first started learning about wine was that in order to understand wine, you need to understand where it comes from. And if you can't put that correlation together, then you're going to be missing a really big fundamental part of wine. And that's, you really need to, there apparently, if you go to, Sancerre, or if you go to these places, if you go to Tuscany, you can really smell the air as you're drinking the wine. It really kind of ties it together so that every time you take a sniff of your favorite Chianti or your favorite whatever it might be, you can kind of relive those memories and eventually hopefully get to visit those places if you haven't been, or like I said, like a $10 ticket to travel in outside of Florence for an evening is not a bad deal.
Not a bad deal at all. No,
It's so
wonderful.
neat, so neat to be out those vineyards.
Yeah.
It feels good. One of the best, probably the most frequent question I get about Italian wine is, we were there in Tuscany, we tasted this wine. Why does it taste different here? Is it the sulfites? What is it? And the answer is, well, close your eyes and picture Tuscany. Now open your eyes and where are you? You're not in Tuscany. That's why it tastes differently, because Tuscany is great and you get to it's the whole senses. All of our senses are included, and that's what makes wine great. It's all about the air we're breathing in and who we're with on this trip, and even the music that's playing in the background. I mean, wine is it's very impressionable, for sure.
That's like I had wine for a neat dinner with friends in this restaurant, and the wine was just wonderful. And you thought, well, we should certainly get another bottle of that, and it didn't taste nearly as good the next time.
Yeah. It's very true. It's very true. I actually did a wine and music pairing dinner one night.
Oh, that'd be
just
fun.
that. And and one of the things, and we know we're going long on the time, but if you take a sip of wine, and the first thing I did was everybody sips the wine, and oh great, it's lovely, and then we put on a Motorhead record, and then everybody sips the wine to Ace of Spades, and then it tastes different, and then we put on Esperanza Spalding, a jazz musician from Portland, and the wine tastes different again. And so we tasted it 3 different ways, and it's all about senses. And wine is definitely influential. It's influenced by all the things: people, wine, music, all the things.
It's all situational.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Sure. Did you have a Riesling and then play Grease Lightning?
No. We did not do that. We did not do no Grease Lightning. No.
Okay.
Although I have a really great. That's another conversation. I have a great remix of the Grease song.
Okay.
Yeah. People love it.
Well, thank you everybody for joining tonight. We do this every 2 weeks or thereabouts. Our next one is actually going to be in February. With the inauguration next week, which was the originally planned Wines Day. We've kind of moved some things around, and just pay attention to the co-op's Instagram and Facebook pages, as well as durham.coop/Wines Day, where we try to post everything at least 2 weeks in advance. And if you haven't been into the co-op recently, we recently finished a renovation. Ed, I know that you've seen the curtain all the way down, and we're almost got all the pieces back into place, and a little different setup to the wine section, but we've got a brand new meat department and seafood department now, and we just got the rotisserie up and running today for some test runs for some in-house cooked meats. And so some really cool things are happening. 2021 is already shaping up to be a really great place for the co-op. So hopefully that continues. Thank you again, everybody, for joining, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Thanks.
Thank you
guys.
both.
Thank you, Jeremy, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I hope to see you guys soon.
That was
Cheers.
wonderful.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy.